Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all are very kind. I normally don't use these notes, but I've gotten a little emotional, so I think I better put them here so that I don't forget. Not long after I was named the 2014 South Carolina Teacher of the Year, I was asked the question, why do you teach? And as I stood there and thought for a moment, all these wonderful images and great answers came to my mind. But just as the cooking show I'm watching during football season when my husband gets control of the remote vanishes, those ideas vanished from my mind. And only a one-word answer came. And it was Chris. Let me tell you about Chris. Chris was not your typical kindergarten student. I do teach first grade, but I started out in kindergarten. Chris was the son of two parents who were illiterate. His two older brothers had special needs and were being served in self-contained classrooms. Chris wore hand-me-down clothes that his two older brothers had worn, and prior to them wearing them, they had been hand-me-downs that were picked up in a thrift shop. He had the misfortune of being taller than his brothers, so all of his pants came to about his ankles. We won't talk about his shorts. But Chris had many things going for him that some people might look at and say he was challenged, because Chris suffered from baby bottle mouth, where all of his top teeth were missing, and it had impaired the development of his speech, so he was challenged to communicate with his peers and adults. As I said, some people look at Chris and they said he didn't have much. But let me tell you what Chris did have. He had two parents who loved him dearly. He had a desire to learn. Chris had a smile that would melt the toughest of hearts. And he had these gorgeous blue eyes that sparkled and danced whenever somebody took the time to talk to him. Chris had a lot going on, but he did have some challenges. And I worked really hard to plan many lessons to help Chris be successful. But those lessons don't stand out in my mind. What stands out in my mind is the major lesson that Chris taught me. It was getting near Christmas time, and you know how you do when you're in kindergarten. We had taken a field trip, and we'd gone chop down a tree, brought it back, decorated it in our classroom, read all these Christmas stories, sang Christmas carols. We were ready. There were gifts under the tree that I had prepared for the children, and they brought some in for me. And it was our party day, and we had been opening gifts and singing and dancing and having a good time. And Chris came up to me, and he said, one more. And he held out his little hand, and he put something in my hand, and it fit in my hand. And as I looked down, what I saw was a small gift that had been wrapped with what looked like recycled Christmas wrap. And you know how that's all wrinkled in and shredded. And there were little strips of previously used tape holding it together. And he just smiled, and he was so proud. He said, for you. And I gingerly opened and pulled back the tape. And laying in my hand was a dented, rusted sheriff's badge, much like the kind that Andy and Barney wore on Andy Griffith. And he said, you the boss. You the boss. Now, I had on what might now, today be considered one of those ugly Christmas sweaters, but at the time, I thought it was beautiful. It had jingle bells and jewels and all this stuff. But I'm gonna tell you, no jewel on that sweater shined as bright or made a bigger sound than that badge I plastered to my sweater. Because you see, Chris's mother didn't go down to the store and buy a gift. She didn't get it wrapped in this fancy paper and had all these little bows hanging off the side. It was not in a gift bag with tissue. Chris had gone to his toy box, and he had found his most prized possession, and he had given it to me. He had given me all he had. And on those nights, when I would sit there and begin to feel sorry for myself, because I had been the one that was up late after I'd put my family to bed, making sure things were ready for my classroom, I was the one who had just finished attending a meeting, and I had had a parent conference, and I was going to have to be at school the next morning at 6 o'clock. My mind would go to Chris. And I kept that badge, and I looked for it to show you, but my family and I moved this summer, so it's packed away someplace. But I kept that badge because it reminded me of the incredible responsibility as a teacher that I have. That child gave all he had. He gave his best. Why should I not do the same? Those children that crossed my classroom, back to that question when they said, why do you teach? I teach because of Chris. I teach because of the children who cross the threshold of my door. They deserve to have a teacher who looks beyond the short pants, the dirty face, the missing teeth. They deserve a teacher who looks within them and sees the potential that is there, that that child doesn't even see. For I am living proof that someone saw potential in me. And that child deserves it. Rita Pearson was a very revered educator, and she said, children deserve to have an educator who believes in them, who will settle for nothing less than their best, who understands the power of connections, and will make sure that those children are successful. They deserve it. She also said children don't learn from teachers they don't like and they don't trust. So you better believe that I made a point that Chris got all the best of me because he had given his best in return. Now, I like this quote. It really touches me. It says, aspire to inspire before you expire. And I think about that. I teach early childhood. I get one chance. That child enters my classroom for 1 year. I get one chance to make a difference in their lives. You know, I consider those of you who get to have a child more than 1 year to be very blessed because you get a second chance. But typically I get one chance to help shape the way they view themselves as a learner. One chance to help them realize their potential at being a productive citizen in our society. One chance. Aspire to inspire before you expire. And in doing that, I think it's important that we persevere to teach the whole child. Now, in today's society, there are lots of standardized tests and measures of academic progress that are being implemented, and they have a place. Teachers invented them, but they are very purposeful and they're powerful. However, we need to make sure that we don't lose our focus and let the value of a child be reflected in what is present on that test score printout. For you see, my little Chris, he would have started at the 5th percentile at the beginning of the year. And although by the end, now we didn't have MAP data back then, so I can't tell you his scores, but I can compare him to other students I've had with similar abilities. But I can guarantee you, he would not have been in the 25th percentile at the end of the school year. However, he made incredible leaps and bounds, and we celebrated it. We celebrated it, we were excited, and you know what? He thought he could rule the world. Now, I'm ashamed to say I've lost track of Chris, but I do intend, when this lovely adventure I've been on is over, is to find out where is that young man? Where is he and what has become of him? Because he inspired me. And we need to make sure that every child that we touch, we do not allow the formalized testing to become a weapon. And unfortunately, that's sort of what it has become, and it causes harm to those in its path. We need to use it for what it was intended, because a child's intelligence is not always measured by what is on that test, but it's our job to look beyond that, use that data, use that information to help us guide our instruction, to provide for them the skills and the abilities that they need so they can be successful. That's our responsibility. They deserve for us to do that for them. Lee Iacocca, he was the CEO of Chrysler. He said something that I think is so important. He said that in a rational society, the best of us would aspire to be teachers, and the rest of us, they have to settle for something less, because passing civilization along from one generation to the next ought to be the highest honor and the highest responsibility there is. Think about that. The best of us. That's you. That's why you're here. You're teacher leaders, and that's incredible. I want you to do something with me for a second. I want you to close your eyes. I'm not going to throw anything at you. I'm not let them take pictures of you. But close your eyes. And I want you to picture your classroom. Okay? Now pretend that your eyes are one of those telephoto lenses, and you're going to zoom in on the students in your class. You're zooming in on those that cause you great concern, that you ask yourself when you're cooking supper or you're going through the drive-thru window, you ask yourself, are they okay? Are they safe? What more can I do to help them achieve? You got them? All right, now pick one of them. Zoom in. Zoom in on their face. Now zoom in on their eyes. Do you see it? Do you see what's reflected in their eyes? It's you. Open your eyes. It's you. You are what reflects in him because you are their hope. I've loved it that our theme this year has been, while I teach, I am hope. Because for Chris, I was his hope. I was the one who could help make a difference in his life. You have many Chris's that you have experienced. You have had the privilege to interact with. You are their hope. And it makes an incredible difference. I heard a story a couple weeks ago about Roger Ebert. Now I am showing my age, but do y'all remember back in the 80s, there was a show with Siskel and Ebert? Okay, all right, well, this was Ebert. He was the one with the glasses, kind of the big guy. In 2006, he was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And the very thing that he had used to make his living, that had made him very popular, very well respected, was his voice. And he had many surgical procedures to deal with this thyroid cancer. And one of those very procedures took away the thing that had given him his success. It took away his voice. And he was asked, of course he could write and communicate, but what were your last words? And he said, it must not have been very profound because I do not remember, I don't recall. But if I could do anything, I would do it to have my voice back. And you, my friends, you have a voice. And you have a choice of how you're going to use it. My hope is that you will use it for your students, that you will use it to encourage them, to motivate and to guide them, to help them to be the best that they can be. And I hope that in your life experience, that somewhere along the line there was a teacher, whether it had been in school, in college, in Sunday school, but somewhere there was a teacher who saw in you potential and helped you to realize that you could be more than what you ever dreamed possible. And I hope that you'll use your voice for your colleagues and your profession. You are powerful teacher leaders. You know, I've just been a weeping mess. You can ask Jason, we've been carrying around tissues because of the powerful people who are in this room. You have so many strengths and talents. And I mentioned this to you the other day, that I feel like we are the Avengers. That when we come together and we unite for whatever cause we feel passionate about, we will be heard. So you have a choice because you have a voice. How are you going to use it? Now I want to share with you that I am just passionate about literacy. My grandfather was the youngest of 21 children, and he was not provided a formal education, for his father passed away before he was born, and his mother, which was my grandfather's second wife, she had 8 children, and when Papa was about somewhere between 3 and 5 years of age, she died. DSS was called to come out and care for the children, take them into custody, so that they would be provided a home and shelter, someone to care for them. But Papa's older brother, who was probably somewhere between 13 and 15, 16 at the time, we're not really sure, decided that he could care better for Papa and another brother. But the girls, he couldn't take care of them. So my grandfather relayed to me how he watched from a big drainage ditch as this lady got out of the car, and he talked about how she had on pantyhose and high heels. Because living out in the country, you know, women didn't wear that unless it was maybe a fancy dinner or something. But he recalled how they came and they took the girls into care. But Papa didn't get that. His life involved working for food, surviving, sleeping out in fields. His life didn't provide him to have a formal education, but he was a very intelligent man. If he had come into this room, you all would have had a chance to meet him because he just had one of those dynamic personalities. And he was a great problem solver and worked well with tools. My mom talks about how he drove a truck, and he drove it for one of the cotton factories in Anderson. And they told him that the manager came out and said, "We need to send a truck to New York." And Papa said, "Okay, write down the road names for me, I'll go." Well, Papa had been gone about half an hour, and someone who knew Papa couldn't read came out and said, No, you didn't send Frank, did you? You didn't send him? And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh my goodness." And this was before cell phones or CBs or any of that stuff. And Papa got there and got back. You know, they had called the place and said, "How in the world did he get there?" Well, Papa just smiled and wouldn't tell them. But like I said, he was a problem solver. When he got to New York City, he couldn't read the road names and the numbers had run out. So he found him a taxi driver, said, "I need you to take me to this address and I'll follow you." And the guy took him, he got there, delivered his goods, and the guy got him back to the main road. He paid the taxi driver. But he never forgot. Once he got someplace, he never forgot. And so he drove that route many times. I tell you this about my grandfather because that's the reason I got into teaching. I wanted to make a difference, that what I chose to do would make a difference and make an impact. And if any child, if I had anything to do with it, they would no longer be faced with the struggles and challenges that my grandfather faced. And so I stand before you today to tell you, I'm proud to be a teacher. I think it is just a wonderful experience. And so back to my original question, why do I teach? I teach because it's something I love. And it's more rewarding to me, I think, oftentimes, than for my students, because just the rewards are great. Okay, I gotta quit this. Oh. But I want to tell you one more thing. I love to read myself, and I read a book this past Christmas that I got from my husband, and it's Washington's Secret Six. And some of you heard me share about this quote before, but they described these spies who were just ordinary citizens doing extraordinary things. And it made me think of you, because you are ordinary citizens, but you do extraordinary things. You impact the future of South Carolina. We are teachers, we are educators, and we are proud to be that. We make a difference in South Carolina. Now, in my class, we work really hard throughout the week. And I grew up in the country, and I grew up listening to country music. And there was at one point, whenever I was little, that I sang in church with my sisters, and I had aspirations of being a country music singer. And so on Friday afternoons in my class, because we have worked really hard, we have what we call Friday dance. And at the end of the day, as they've packed up, we're getting ready to go to our activity class, we have our Friday dance, where we sing and dance and have a good time. And at the end we say, "Thank goodness it's Friday." Well, it's not Friday, but it's Thursday. And I have to tell you something, because you are extraordinary people, and because we have worked so very hard. I believe the superheroes, hold on. The superheroes are here to teach. Hit it, Todd.
We tried to get Josh Turner here, he's from Florence too. But you're gonna have to oh baby, why don't we just turn that TV on? 315 channels of nothing but bad news on. Well, it might be me, but the way I see it, the whole wide world would go crazy. from going all crazy. Because you choose to teach round the hall or straight up the stairs. Children big and small, we'll show them we care, oh baby. So glad you choose to teach. The little bitty classroom may not look like much, but your leadership and expertise is gonna be more than enough. With lots of reflection and homeroom connection, you've been networking like crazy. So glad you choose to teach down the hall or straight up the stairs. Students big and small, we'll show them we care, oh baby. So glad you choose to teach. Thank you, Jason.
Here we go.
Well, it might be me, but the way I see it, the whole wide world would go crazy if you didn't choose to teach. Oh, baby, the heroes are here to teach.